Any of you heard of the Lost Franklin expedition?
No.
Apart from when I mentioned it last week?
Yeah, I was going to say, apart from that, no.
Yeah, I think, but I don't know anything about it other than some people got lost on an expedition.
And
one of them was called Franklin.
Yeah. So you might have. There was a TV show I think a couple of years ago called The Terror, which was like loosely based on this expedition from the 1800s. And in that there was like they played up the paranormal side of it. You know, there was like some Inuit monster tracking them down and eating them and all that sort of shit.
Oh, cool.
Maybe that actually happened, but maybe not. We're going to delve into it in just a few minutes.
I see.
But the reason we wanted to speak to it is about it is Rob, or Rob and I were talking about the HMS Endurance that was found last week, which was again a different expedition in the Antarctic. Where
that was crazy.
I'm pretty sure I mentioned it vaguely on one episode of the podcast.
I think you did. Ago. Yeah, you've at least told us about it in the past. It must have been on an episode. Yeah,
which is a mad story. Like they just was stuck on an iceberg for 2 years. Or something crazy.
Yeah, you did mention.
But they recently
you
found
mentioned that on the Breatharian episode, I believe, which I think is episode 67.
You've got such a mind for recall.
So we were talking about like not eating food and stuff, and you said about these people lasted, fuckloads of time not eating basically.
Yeah, and having a seal.
Yeah, and I said, no, there's eating snow. It's all right. It's fine. Unlimited snow and water because the snow melts and it's water.
Yes, there you go. You made that joke then, yeah.
But it's seawater though.
It wasn't funny then. It's not funny now.
Can't eat the seawater, Tom. It's the problem.
Well, the ice isn't seawater, is it?
Yeah, I suppose not.
No, I guess not.
What temperature does seawater freeze at? That's like negative 15 or something, isn't it? It's not just like 0 because of the salt.
That's a fucking great question, George.
Yeah. What
Guess we'll never know.
We'll never know.
No way of knowing.
So anyway, last week they found this ship called the HMS Endurance, which was, I think it was like 1817 it sunk, and they found it and it's pristine, like completely perfect at the bottom of the Antarctic Sea.
I wouldn't say pristine.
It wasn't quite as old as that. It was
1917. Sorry,
yeah, because it was like 100, just over 100 years old, wasn't it? 107, I think.
Not quite pristine in the fact that it was, a little bit of a hole in it. But more or less like looking pretty good for having been on the bottom of the ocean for. Yeah,
when it mad seeing the name Endurance, just that bit was just like clear as day still. Like, I bet they were buzzing when they went down with that camera and saw that.
Great thumbnail.
It'd be off the chain. Yeah, great thumbnail. Yeah.
Did it pop the willies up you, Rob, when you saw it?
It did a bit. It is eerie. I mean, I said this before. I think that like the only thing more eerie than a shipwreck is like a plane
wreck.
Sound,
the sound of the noise through masts on a foggy evening on the Thames.
Oh yeah, no. Is a plane wreck, is a sunken plane, because that's even more like, well, that definitely ain't meant to be there, and people definitely died on that. Whereas with a shipwreck, they didn't necessarily die. Like in that one, none of them actually died, did they? They all got off.
Yeah, but all got off and they all survived.
Isn't it mad? They said there's like plates and shit on there. I wonder why you can't take that.
No one got that joke? Unbelievable. They all got off and they all survived. They all got off.
What are you on about?
What, are you trying to say they all like jacked each other off or something? Is that?
Yeah, they was all jacking each other off and they survived.
I see.
Listeners, email us if you also got that joke and found it funny.
I reckon there's going to be at least one person on YouTube that says I got that joke.
And found it funny.
Yeah, that's the important part. Like,
it's going to be me. Anyway, Rob, what are you saying?
Plates.
Yeah, there was all the plates and crockery and things, like, and some boots. But they weren't allowed to take it out, was it? I read it. It's like they had to leave it all, which I get with like a war grave or, like a grave or anything. But because no one died there, I'm surprised they couldn't just pocket a little spoon, like stick it in a museum.
But maybe it's still owned by like the Navy or whatever, or the British government. Maybe it's like...
No, it's like it's protected by the like Archaeological Monuments Act or something. But... I don't know what necessarily means. You have to leave everything there.
Anything from any kind of archaeological site, right? Like if they dug up some like Egyptian tomb or something, you can't just be like, oh, that's a nice bit of fucking silverware there, and like take that. Like, you have to kind of leave it where it is.
Imagine a load of British people doing that.
I know.
Yeah,
I was going to say. Yeah, is that like a new
Mad.
thing that we've done? Because we definitely used to just take it all, didn't we?
Yeah, I think that's just not done anymore. There's like
Yeah, but like I get that, you know, like leaving it in each so that they have it, that's a sightseeing thing or whatever. But down the bottom of the sea, no one's going down there to see that. In the middle of you know, they ain't getting there again. It could be a long time before anyone even goes there again. You think you could bring a couple of spoons back? Or, I don't know.
maybe all the octopus that are using them down there, you know.
It's true.
And then you nick them.
There was quite a lot of marine life had found new life there. They did mention.
Yeah, that would be the spookiest bit. Is like swimming around. If you go like in it, but obviously going on the outside, it's fine. But I feel like if you was like swimming in it, going through the galley and the little corridors and stuff,
That's
and then like a fucking squid comes out at you or something, or even if it was just like a big fish or an eel, like goes like past you.
Fuck you up. Have you
It's like a horror film, isn't it?
You ever seen that video where they go down to a shipwreck, and it's like it's a boat that's just gone down, and they think everyone on it's dead, and there's a bloke in there, and he's been alive for like 11 days or 7 days or something.
Yeah, he's in like this little pocket.
Yeah, managed to survive in the pocket of air, like at the bottom of the fucking ocean. It's so crazy. Yeah. And the guy goes in, obviously scares the shit out of him, doesn't he? Because he goes in, he's like, oh, there's another one in here. Grabs his arm, he's like, what the f-? He's like, yeah, rubber shits him because he thinks he's all dead. And then imagine that bloke's like overwhelming relief when the guy found him as well. It must have been crazy.
Yeah,
like,
just sitting there waiting to die.
Yeah.
Drinking Coke, I think. I remember he was just surviving on cans of Coke that were floating by.
Was he?
Like 3 days or something. It's nuts. Anyway, let's leave him, to enjoy the rest of his happy days outside of a ship. And let's go back to 1845 and the Franklin expedition. So we've spoken about the Endurance. That was in Antarctica. But we're going up to the Arctic now, boys. We're not staying down south. We're going north. So this is a tale of terror, madness, mystery, and cannibalism.
Oh.
The story of the lost Franklin expedition, otherwise known as the Terror Expedition. So it was an Arctic expedition organised by the Royal Navy in 1845. So they were trying to chart a course through the Arctic to try and find the Northwest Passage, which was like a fabled route up over the top of Canada, and it will connect through to Asia. So it was going to like drastically shorten shipping routes because the Suez Canal hadn't been built by this point. So
I think we've all tried to find the Northwest Passage at some point, haven't we?
Oh yeah, was that joke any better?
Slightly better, wasn't it?
At least I got it.
So anyway, they were trying to. This was the whole purpose of this expedition. They were trying to find this Northwest Passage. Obviously, at the time when the British Empire, they were trying to dominate the seas and dominate the world. So it would have been a massive coup to try and open up this part of the world. So the expedition had around 130 men, and it was aboard 2 ships, one called HMS Terror, and the other one was called HMS Erebus.
Seems like a bit of a fail in the outset, doesn't it? Calling your ship HMS Terror. Why was it HMS Terror?
Yeah. So they used to be like bomb ships. So they were actual Navy ships, and then they got converted into like these Arctic seagoing ships. So I guess HMS Terror as a bomb ship, literally it had a big mortar on the deck. It's quite apt. But then Erebus is Greek. It's a Greek word that is like a personification of Hades, so darkness. So both of them, they're quite, they fit the...
followed by the HMS Doom, and we're all going to sink.
HMS fucked up. So yeah, like I say, the ships have been specially adapted. They were state of the art, actually. In fact, back in 1845, they had warm water plumbing systems. It was powered by a steam boiler, so like the water pipes wouldn't freeze, and the ship would actually remain warm in the cold.
Wow,
that must have been nice
in the 1800s. That is mad, isn't it?
1845, yeah, it was like a pretty big deal. It had as I say, a steam boiler, reinforced hulls, and a retractable propeller. So the propeller could be pulled inside the ship in case ice was going to, hit it or something like that. So it's pretty crazy. They invested a lot of money into these 2 ships.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't even
and the
have a boat
expedition-
that can do that now. It's 2022.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the one that found the Endurance was that was a specially adapted boat of some kind, I imagine.
Maybe.
Did it have a steam boiler?
Probably. I imagine is that still one of the... No, maybe not. I don't know.
Probably not steam now.
No, probably just like diesel. Yeah. Anyway.
Or
Again,
eco-friendly.
things we know lots about. Heating boats commercially.
So the name of the expedition comes from the leader, John Franklin. He was like this old Navy guy who'd explored the Arctic, and somewhat ominously, his last expedition to the Arctic had ended up with his men having to eat their own boots because they didn't have any food. And I think a few people died on that one. They had to walk back to like a trading post in the north of Canada somewhere.
Without any boots?
Without their boots, yeah.
Is there really much nutritional benefit?
I was about to say, do you get any nutrition from boots?
Well, it's leather. The old ones used to be leather, didn't they? So it's just skin, I guess. So it's probably minimal, but it's like a common thing back in history. People that were trapped in like snowstorms and, were starving, people would literally eat their boots. I think there's a saying now, maybe. I'm not too sure. Obviously, I don't think it's ideal. You're not really going to... It's not one of your 5 a day, is it? But, yeah, in a pinch, I guess. Yeah.
Always got
you can't eat a pair of Vans, Tom. It's not quite the same.
No, I guess not.
I mean, it would have been about as useful for you as they were the other day on the trip.
Yeah, I was trekking through the mud.
So the ships had been, the journey was supposed to take a couple of years. So the ships had enough food and provisions to last 3 years. So between them, they had loads of gear on board to last them. And in May 1945, they set sail from Greenhithe. Is it Greenhithe, Rob, or Greenhithe? Greenhithe, right?
Just Greenhithe.
Yeah, Greenhithe in Kent, before they sailed to Greenland. And then at that point, when it was in Greenland, they transferred 5 men that had gotten sick onto a supply ship, and that supply ship went home with some letters. So those 5 men were the only 5 that survived, or technically survived, from the expedition. So they were the lucky ones, even though they had like dysentery or something. So obviously not pleasant. But yeah, after this, they went west towards Canada, and the last time they were sighted, the 2 ships, was in Baffin Bay in July 1845, which is just between Greenland and Canada. And then after this, the 2 ships were never seen again by Europeans. So after 2 years, no one had heard anything. So back in the 1800s, obviously you didn't have like TikTok or anything like that. So they were expected to send word. Once they got through, they would send word with a ship that was heading back towards England. So there'd be, they'd find like a whaler or just a trade ship, write a note, and then that would go back to England. So I've got an important message from Franklin, and that would just let them know where they are. But 2 years, didn't hear anything at all. Eventually, the Navy decided to mount several search teams. They weren't really too worried because they were expecting it to take. They were expected to take, like I say, about 1.5 to 2 years to do this expedition. Didn't hear anything. The 3 expeditions they sent out didn't find anything at all. No sign of the ships, no sign of the men. They sort of knew roughly where they were going to be heading, but they couldn't find them at all. And then over the next couple of years, they started to send more out. So in 1948, another party went up to the Canadian Arctic, but found nothing. And it wasn't until 1850 that the first hints of the expedition were discovered. So there was a fleet of about 11 ships went up together, and they moored off the coast of Beechey Island, which is like a really rocky island. It's just like pebbles, basically. There's nothing there. There's no grass, there's no trees. It's just completely barren. And on the island, they found the remains of a camp. Mm-hmm. And at this camp, they found the graves of 3 of the crew members, which I will show you through the crew members, because it was in the Arctic. Obviously, it froze. So they got perfectly preserved, which is pretty mad.
I was going to say, how do they know it was their grave? But
well, so the each of the men had been buried, and they'd been given tombstones. So they had like inscriptions that said, I think one of them was called like John Torrington.
Right.
And so they knew exactly who they were, where they'd come from, stuff like that. Sorry, where am I again? Yeah, but they didn't find any messages. So there was no other messages, no hint to where the ships were. But they knew, okay, they're at least here in about 1845, camping over winter. And then in 1854, so another 4 years since those three bodies were found, a guy called John Ray had been travelling up and around northern Canada. He was doing like some exploration for one of the trading companies. And he met some indigenous people living on a river called the Black River. And the indigenous population told him that there was a party of 35 to 40 white men who had died of starvation near the mouth of the Black River. Others confirmed the story, and that's when they started to hear these rumours of cannibalism amongst the sailors, and that they'd resorted just to violence. So they were actively hunting each other, so they weren't living in one group and then someone would die and then they'd eat that person. They were actually formed into little gangs and they were actively trying to kill each other to eat, basically, which is pretty mad.
How many were there in total? Like, how many crew members roughly?
I think there's 130.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that would get broken up into little
You can
groups,
see how that
wouldn't it? Yeah.
And it was two ships as well. So obviously you've already got, maybe a bit of rivalry between the two ships.
Yeah.
And then within that, you've probably got a bit more.
Yeah, like the
savage,
different
isn't it?
groups. I don't know. Like everyone's probably got different jobs on the boat, right? And it's like all the below deck team and the above deck team, and everyone's going to be splitting up, aren't they?
Yeah. But I can't imagine it was very pleasant, whatever was going on. I mean, even if they're all in one big gang, it doesn't sound like they're having the best time. Obviously, these are just rumours as well at this point, so there's no like concrete stuff. The Inuits that they met were telling them what they found, but it was two different groups, independent groups, and they both said the same thing. So they both more or less gave the same sort of story. And then later on...
the story was just like they found a bunch of dead white people that were clearly, lost and had been eating each other.
Well, they didn't even find the dead people, so they came across a group, so they were still alive.
Oh, okay.
And there was some sort of interaction between the Inuit and this group of like white Europeans. Well, I guess, I can't imagine that the life of an Inuit in like 1850 was particularly like easy. So they were probably just like trying to survive themselves, right? Between polar bears and, I don't know, just finding food and shit.
Yeah.
So I imagine they couldn't really, suddenly care for 40 mentalists that are chopping each other's arms off and shit. So later on in this guy's trip, so he was travelling up and down the Black River. I think so the first time he met the Inuit, it was in early 1854. And then by June 1854, he met another party, so another group of Inuit that also said that they'd found small groups of white men, or it was like in their sort of history of the area, because this is about 10 years later, sorry, that these small groups of Europeans had been just lost, killing each other, basically acting like savages, I guess. And this group gave this guy called John Ray cutlery. So they had silver spoons, forks, knives, like ships' cutlery. And they were later on confirmed to have belonged to several officers from Erebus. So because it was from a ship, it had the name of the ship engraved onto the silver.
And that was the posh boys stuff as well, like silver, if it was the officers. Yeah.
Imagine these like Inuit just eating with, a little silver.
Well, I read before that, like, obviously finding like silver or something up, near the North Pole is going to be fucking near impossible, really. And like, you'd have to like drill for it or something. And I imagine, I don't know much about what goes on up there, but I imagine there's like lots of different kind of like tribes and cultures and stuff, maybe like different, groups of people. And when white Europeans went there for like the first time, they'd met these people, and these people had never seen like white people before, never seen, Europeans didn't even know that there was a world outside of their little community. They thought they were the only 300 people in the world. They'd never seen anyone else ever.
Yeah.
But they still had knives and forks. And they were like, how the fuck do these people still have knives and forks? And no one knew. Like, the knives and forks had just been handed down throughout a generation. So everyone who was like alive now didn't know where the knives and forks originally came from. And they ended up figuring out that there was like an asteroid that had landed probably like hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago. So there was like, if you trekked off miles, there was this rock that had silver in it. So they reckon that
knives
like
and forks all stuck into it.
so they reckon that like this tribe, you know, a couple hundred years ago went and found this rock, took a bunch of silver out of it and made it into like knives and forks. And it wasn't like, I imagine it probably wasn't the exact same design as ours, where it's got like the 4 prongs and everything.
But it was like
polished. Yeah, so some way of eating food. And these people didn't know where it came from. They said, oh yeah, like our ancestors have passed it down. And
it's pretty mad, isn't it?
You know,
that is mad.
It's weird that, yeah, like in sync, like humans from that had never seen anyone else had like individually came up with the same idea for eating food.
Yeah.
I wonder if eventually like apes will start making a knife and a fork, because I know that apes use tools. And
I was
like
going to say, yeah, they start. There's an
tools.
apes using tool theory, isn't there? And,
yeah. But do you think they'll evolve to figure out that like a fork or a two pokey thing is good for picking up, whatever, a banana and eating it?
In theory, maybe they.
I don't think the things that they eat are mostly hand foods anyway, really. I don't think they're too bothered about getting their hands dirty.
Yeah, true. Never know. You never know.
It depends what they progress doing it. Yeah. Did we start doing it because our food started getting hot?
Yeah, probably.
I imagine.
Like cooking our food.
Because you get more nutrition from cooked food, don't
like
you?
S'mores over the campfire.
Yeah. And it's just
Cavemen.
hot to touch.
Cavemen were doing it.
Yep.
Get some s'mores.
I get myself a right old burn today as well. I was cooking on a wok and I just touched it. Absolutely scalding on it, yeah.
Fucking what are you doing, eh?
I
what are you like?
I genuinely knew you were going to say exactly
that. Right, that's too much fun. Let's get back to the misery of these blokes.
Quickly, while you're on the topic of woks, I just want to bring this up with you. There's a place in Amsterdam called Wok to Walk, and I'm just thinking about it now. That's not really a pun or anything, is it? What does that mean?
Because
walk to walk.
They cook it in the wok and then you walk with it. It's like a takeaway.
Yeah,
I guess. Like farm to table.
But there's no like.
They have them in London as well now.
They're not going for a pun. It's just telling you how it is.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I'll ask him next time I'm there. So my mate wants to know what's your pun angle.
They're quite nice.
They're very good. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Sub to walk.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they found these this cutlery. So they're like, okay, it's all starting to maybe come together now. Another year passed. I should say, by the way, that all through these years, so like 10 years, John Franklin's wife, so everyone else had sort of given up. The Admiralty had said, yeah, they're likely dead. We don't know where they are. It is what it is. End of the day, it is what it is.
Get over it.
Yeah, she was like, she became like a national figure because she was, what do you call it? Like if you're requesting Parliament, or she is...
right, we're trying to get people to find them still and stuff.
Yeah, she was like drumming up support constantly, and she became like a national figure. Yeah. She was fundraising.
Yeah,
literally fundraising expeditions. So she was like GoFundMe, the equivalent of £1 million because my husband's missing in the Arctic. So she was the one that kept getting these expeditions. Probably would have done an OnlyFans if it had been about only peep shows. A year after the spoons were found, another 2 searchers. These 2 were sent by the Admiralty after the spoons, got back to London. Obviously, it probably took, I don't know how long it would have taken to get back down through northern Canada and then back to where there's a ship and all that sort of shit. Probably a long time.
Little while, yeah.
So these two searchers returned to the Arctic, and they were then told by a different band of Inuit that a group of Galunat, which meant whites or foreigners. I guess whites was probably just a term that they adapted to that word because they just assumed that they hadn't seen anyone else apart from these white Europeans. But basically that these foreigners had starved to death along the coast. In August of that year, they found a piece of wood inscribed with Erebus and another that said Mr. Stanley, who was the surgeon aboard Erebus on Montreal Island, which was where the Black River flows out into the sea. So it all seems like whatever, or a lot of the stuff that happened around this Black River area, because I think by now it's 4 or 5 different groups of Inuit that were all pointing to the same spot. They also found a human skeleton there as well. They weren't able to identify it, but there was just a human skeleton. So in April 1859, so it's another 5 years since that expedition.
Where was
So
the picture of
weren't
these graves, by the way, George? Did you send it somewhere?
Sorry?
You said you were going to send a picture of these graves.
I will in a second. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
when we get to. I'll tell you what. I'll send it. That's
That's all right. I just wasn't sure if I'd missed it somewhere where you'd put it. Yeah.
So there's also. I'm not going to play it now, but there's a good documentary from like 1988 when they exhume these graves.
Oh
and
no,
they
play
film,
it now.
they film it, right? It's mental. Like they dig obviously the coffin's up, and then I open the top of the coffin. It's just a block of ice because obviously it's frozen. So they have to start melting snow to make hot water to pour on the ice. And as they're doing it, obviously there's bodies just coming out of the ice, and it just looks like someone who's been dead for like half a day. It's just mental.
That's crazy. This was in 1988.
That was in 1988. Yeah.
That's mad.
Let me send the 2 pictures now. But it is. Yeah, it's quite interesting the fact that these bodies they're still there. They're still almost in perfect condition. Obviously, apart from the fact that they're dead. And it comes into play.
Pristine.
It comes into play.
Whoa.
A little bit later when we talk about maybe what happened. One of the causes why things went the way they did. The fact that they were able to, test these bodies basically. I think one of them looks a bit like Lawford. That's looking a bit like Lawford. It looks like Lawford with a pillowcase on his head.
Yeah, it doesn't not look like Lawford, yeah.
We both knew which one you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's mad though, isn't it? Like obviously they're dead. They look dead, but for 100. So this was in 1988, and then they died in 1945. So all of these men died at the same time.
1945. What was it? It was like 1800s.
No, 1845. Did I say 1945?
Yeah.
So 1845, and they were dug up in 1988.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's a long old time.
Ah.
And then they put them back in, and they're still there. These bodies are still out in the Arctic somewhere, obviously frozen again. Probably won't be forever, because I guess global warming's going to, affect that part of the world.
Yeah, I wonder why they done that. Did they just decide that was probably like the most respectful thing to do, is like leave them there or where they died? Or
I guess so, because when they were buried,
probably gone as well. Like,
I think they found like one of the at least one of the bodies of someone that they could find a descendant of, but it wasn't one of these. It was just like skeletal remains. But I think because these 3, they'd been buried and they'd been given a proper burial and all that sort of stuff, they probably thought, we'll just leave them here rather than chuck them back in London somewhere. So anyway, we'll talk about the bodies again in a little bit when we get into the theories. But yeah, so in 1859, so this is another 5 years after or 4 years after, they eventually find some solid evidence as to where the ships had been, and it was like the last bit of information that they found from it. So parties sent out from a ship called the Fox were searching King William Island, which is not far from Beechy Island, so where these bodies were found. And the party found a cairn, which is like a big pile of stones.
I know, mate. I know. Don't worry.
You know, you're a bit of a mountaineer.
Don't worry, I know.
You know what a cairn
Thanks.
is. Did you know what a cairn was, Tom?
Yeah, a big pile of stones, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, big pile of stones, right, yeah. So anyway, there was this massive cairn, and they were like, okay, probably should check that because who's going to have built a cairn? It's not a known, thing that the Inuit population do.
Those things for like on trail markers, like people put those, stack them up.
Yeah.
I know.
And within the cairn, there was 2 messages within like a tube, like a metal tube. So they found these messages, and it was from the expedition. So it was from 1847. So 28th of May, 1847. This was one of 2. So it said that Erebus and Terror had wintered in the ice off of the northwest coast of King William Island, and then had gone to Beechy Island, where they buried the 3 men. And then the second message, which was written in the margins of that same sheet of paper, was dated the 25th of April, 1848, so pretty much a year later. And it reported that the Terror and Erebus had been trapped in the ice for a year and a half, and that the crew had abandoned the ships on the 22nd of April. At this point, 24 officers and crew had died, including Franklin, so the leader of the expedition. And he'd died a year earlier, basically. So he died just after the ships got stuck in the ice originally. And at this point of the second message, the 105 survivors planned to start out the next day walking south towards the Black River. So they've got definitive proof now. A message from one of the officers of the, I think it was the Erebus, basically saying, yeah, it all went tits up. They got caught in the ice. Obviously, pack ice just traps you. You can't do anything about it. Once it solidifies around, then you just move wherever the pack goes. So you can't break out or anything like that. And they were stuck in it for a year and a half. So even though normally the ice would clear, as summer comes, and then you can hopefully find your way out of the ice flow, it just didn't clear. Obviously, just didn't clear, and they were just stuck in ice for not moving for a year and a half, which is similar to what happened to the Endurance expedition. They got stuck in the ice. They thought, okay, it should clear again. When the summer comes, the pack should start to break up and they can force their way out. But in this case, it didn't happen.
Man, that's miserable. Imagine that, just like, oh, fuck. Well, let's wait 6-7 months and see how it goes. Like, you just know you're living there now for 6-7 months.
Yeah. What did happen with the Endurance? Because it actually, like, there's pictures of them standing there. They watched it go down, didn't they? Like, how did that suddenly happen?
So with the Endurance, it wasn't like a purpose-built ship. It was just like a steamship that this Ernest Shackleton had obviously bought or hired for this expedition. So it didn't have a reinforced hull. So as the ice closed in, the pressure of the ice just crushed the ship. So it eventually snapped all of the beams and just broke it in half, basically. So and on that one, they had, like you say, they took photos, so you can see photos of the whole thing from on the ship and then off the ship. They're watching the ship just get crushed.
There's like video of it leaving and stuff in there as well.
I think they took a little short video of it.
Yeah.
And then they've got photos of them living on this iceberg for a year. Sailing off in his little boat. It's just mental. It's interesting, even if you aren't that interested in history, I recommend you read about that, because from a human survival perspective, it's just mad how, they just lived on this piece of frozen water in the middle of.
It annoyed me in all the the news reports about it. It was a classic end of the news report one, wasn't it? Like a good happy thing at the end of the news. Oh, and today they found this Endurance thing. A lot of them like flippantly sort of went, and all of them survived. Like none of them. It would have taken an extra 5 seconds to say, and it was an amazing tale of human survival. They actually survived for 2 years. Like none of them mentioned 2 years. I was like, I swear there was some mad survival thing about that. And then I read up and I was like, oh yeah, George said about that. But anyway, that just annoyed me. Why they fucking
2 years, right? Or a year,
the MSM, the fucking MSM not doing their job.
Year and 10 months, and then
that was crazy. I
don't know, 12 of them had to sail or row 800 miles.
That was it. And Shackleton himself did it, didn't he? He led that rowing boat.
And then that to climb over mountains to get to the once they hit the little island. So imagine living on an iceberg for on bits of biscuit and I don't know, penguins and seals that they managed to catch. and then having to boots, and then having to fucking row for 800 miles, and then having to climb a mountain.
They rode for 800 miles.
Yeah,
it's a lot of miles.
I think so. I might
that
be
is crazy.
Bullshit,
mate, what fucking absolute gangsters them
you
lads
said 800
there.
miles the other day, so even that
I'm
number.
sure it was 800 miles between the Antarctic and Elephant Island, I think it was.
That is absolutely insane.
Shouldn't.
Built different stuff back then, weren't they, in the 1800s?
Yeah, I've never done anything 800 miles.
It wasn't the 1800s, was it? It was 1900s, but still.
I can't find it now. I'll see if I can find it. By the end of the day, I will. By the end of the episode, I will tell you.
Go on, yeah,
for sure how many
you crack on. Maybe I'll have a look.
Anyway, let's get back to the Franklin expedition. It's not going quite so well for them, I'll be honest. Up in the Arctic. So basically, this is where this part of the story ends. Is they'd found this message. They more or less confirmed. They had to abandon the ship. They tried to walk south to the Black River. So the Black River was where, the sort of the fur trading companies in Canada were operating on this river. So they knew if we walk, again, I'm not too sure the miles on this one, but if we walk that way, eventually we'll find civilization, we'll find an outpost, and then, find our way back to safety. But obviously it didn't go quite so well. And there's a few reasons why it might have not gone so well. They had 3 years worth of supplies on the ship, so you would have thought, why didn't they just maybe wait it out or take enough supplies with them? I guess they were dragging lifeboats across the ice full of stuff, and that's how they were carrying all their supplies. There's been lots of rumours about what happened to the expeditions. However, one of the big causes of A, why they might have got themselves into the situation in the first place, and B, why they might have started killing each other so early, and also why they might have been so weak, is lead poisoning. So
classic
lead poisoning.
They didn't learn that from the Romans.
Is that a Roman thing, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Didn't they use lead pipes for their water or something?
Yeah, that's what was like the downfall. They reckon that's the downfall of like the Roman Empire, was that they were using lead pipes for everything. And after like a couple of generations, people just got
just fucking them up,
stupider and like crazy, and just got fucked up.
Mad. So one of the biggest theories is that the crew developed a severe case of lead poisoning due to incorrectly sealed tin food. So at the time, tin food was a bit of a it was like a bit of a phenomena. Before then tin food didn't exist. The Navy didn't have tins on their ships. It was all sort of like either fresh food or dry food. So the tins, when the company was contracted to prepare all the food for the expedition, they'd done it really cheaply. They just basically sold to the lowest bidder. So all of the soldering was really bad. So when the tins were soldered, the lead, the liquid lead, was actually coming into contact with the food. So then it was contaminating the food.
That's mad. I knew lead wasn't good for you, but I didn't know. Like, I guess if it was all they were eating for, a year or two,
definitely fuck you up.
Yeah, like it would affect you.
So
you get away with a little bit of lead.
I reckon so. Yeah, I mean, lead pencil. Everyone's chewed on a bit of lead
one or two.
I don't think lead pencils have been actual lead since.
No, it's graphite.
It's graphite. Yeah, even since we were.
Yeah, it's like tin foil is also not tin, is it? It's aluminium,
but it is foil.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, so this is where we get back to the bodies. So the 3 bodies. So that gravesite was first rediscovered in 1982, and they also found at that site some bone fragments. And on these bones, there was evidence of cut marks that were that suggested cannibalism. So it wouldn't normally, if like polar bears chewed you, you'd see teeth marks that they'd be able to say, yeah, he's been eaten by a polar bear.
Right.
But they had very specific cut marks around the joints and on certain areas, like to get, I guess, muscles off of the bone. When these remains were tested, an extremely high level of lead was found in the bone. So this was the first time where they thought, oh, that's strange. Why is the lead so high in this bone? So they also tested local Inuit remains, and the lead wasn't present. So it wasn't like an atmospheric thing. It wasn't something that was like in that general area or anything like that. So they thought, okay, this could be something to maybe examine. So in 1988, when those 3 bodies were dug up, all 3 were tested, and they were found to have high levels of lead poisoning. That would have resulted in severe mental and physical problems. So they would have been hallucinating. They would have obviously been very sick, very weak, delusional. So if you've got 130 men on a ship, and maybe half of them are experiencing hallucinations and delusions, I don't think your expedition is going to go too well very, very quickly.
No.
So this is also one of the reasons being put forward as to why John Franklin decided to just go straight into the ice. So normally, any normal captain would have wintered in like a cove or a bay, let the pack ice form up, and then in the spring sailed out. So you're not actually in the pack; you're a little bit sheltered close to land. But he didn't. He just went straight into the pack and pushed through. No one really knows why, but one of the reasons may have been because he was suffering from at least mild lead poisoning. So he was a bit delusional. He wasn't really thinking rationally, things like that. Also, when the men abandoned ship, they took weird things with them. Normally you'd think they'd take things for survival, but they were taking things like big, heavy clocks, furniture.
They're fucking nut, weren't they?
Yeah, stuff that you wouldn't, you don't need if you're trying to survive. You want to travel as lightly as possible. But they were taking all the weird stuff with them. Eventually, they found some of the tins. So another site, they found loads of old rusty tins, and they examined that they found that the seams were really, really poorly made. So it would have led to botulism as well. So the actual food supply that they had, even though they had enough for 3 years, due to botulism, obviously you can't eat stuff that's got botulism as it can kill you. Their food supply potentially might have been not even half of what they actually had on the ship. And of that half, it's making you go crazy. It's making you lose your mind and become delusional and making you weaker. You was actually getting weaker from eating the food.
I've never heard that word before, botulism.
So I think it's it's like a bacteria or I think it's an actual organism that gets into food and then it like ferments it basically.
Right.
And if you eat it, it can kill you. Like it can really, really just mess you up. Like you see it like in old tins and stuff. But if food isn't sealed properly,
yeah, it's gone rotten.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's what happens when it goes rotten. But so anyway, their food is severely limited, and the food that they are getting is just fucking them up basically constantly. However, even this situation, it was a bit weird that they had such a high level of lead in their systems. Like it wouldn't have been enough, even if you were eating only this tinned food for a year and a half. It would have been a minimal amount of lead. So there's still a mystery as to how the lead is so high, which has given rise to a theory that they were attacked by aliens. And the lead was as a result of,
I was thinking this didn't really add up.
like a radiation beam or something like that, which maybe is true, I don't know. But
would the lead be higher in the people that had eaten people that had lead poisoning?
Oh, yeah.
Because
good point, I don't know.
I know, like,
isn't it getting double the lead?
Isn't it something like that? Well, isn't it like they say when you watch things about like, don't eat dolphins kind of documentaries. I remember there was one and it specifically said
don't eat dolphins.
Yeah, like there are a few, aren't there? Like, can't think of the name of one. They're like Dolphin Cove or something is one. Or the Cove it's called. It's fucking horrible. It's all about like how they murder a load of dolphins in like Japan and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But they talk specifically about that, how in some places they still eat them. They're like, no, you get really bad, what is it, poisoning you get from that?
Mercury poisoning?
Mercury poisoning.
Yeah.
And they say something about the bigger the animal. So it starts off, there's like these smaller animals that have such an amount of mercury. And then as the bigger animals eat them, the mercury concentration gets higher for some reason. Yeah, is it because of the way they're... livers or something
It might
produce
be
it.
the way they absorb it. I don't know.
But
I don't know. I don't know if you'd get more lead poisoning if you ate someone who had lead poisoning.
Surely. Because if the lead can be detected in their muscles and bones and stuff, then you're eating that.
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's from the bone, though. I think it's specifically like bone and hair where the lead was detected. I don't know whether...
That's because that's all they
muscle.
had. That's all they had left to test.
Yeah.
Well, not on those bodies.
Oh, they
You can
tested
see
them
for
lads,
yourself.
didn't
Not
they?
old
Yeah,
Lawford.
yeah.
Lawford's
Oh, yeah.
sitting there happy as Larry. He's got all
Yeah,
sorts of
true.
stuff on him.
Yeah.
But I think that they only found traces in the bone.
Okay.
So I'm not too sure. I mean, it's a good point, though. Who knows? So one other possibility, apart from aliens, which obviously we know that it's probably aliens, is that this newfangled hot water or drinking water, like a plumbing thing they had on the ship, it was using lead pipes, or at least part of it was lead lined. So again, they're also getting lead poisoning from their water as well as their food. So it's just making it worse and worse. So yeah, makes sense. Kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
because that the food not good for you, because the food was so bad for them. You know, I think one of the theories is that they eventually realised they had a couple of surgeons on board. The surgeons probably realised that the food was A, rotten, B, it was maybe poisonous, because you know all the men around them were losing their minds. So they might have started rationing the food, stopping the men from having as much food, which eventually led to outbreaks of violence and eventually cannibalism. But could they have been driven mad by lead poisoning or another force and resorted to killing and eating one another? One other theory is that they were killed by a monster of the Inuit. So like a legend.
Abominable snowman.
Bit like the abominable snowman, which is, like I mentioned at the start, this is what the show The Terror is. Yeah, that's what they ham up. Like there's this Inuit legend that's guarding this part of the Arctic, and the crew in some way insulted the local indigenous people. So this monster starts hunting them and killing them one by one, driving them mad, making them kill each other. You know, all this sort of stuff. It devolves into just a horror film, basically. But one of the theories is that this is actually it. This is true. You know, this is how the men died, and they were slowly turned mad by this being in the Arctic that forced them to kill and eat each other until eventually there were none left and they're all dead. Which is spooky. I reckon it's true. I reckon it's aliens, right? The alien told this monster god to tell him, right, you need to get them all sorts of fucked up. You need to get them eating each other.
They work together. The aliens worked with a monster ice god.
Yeah.
Maybe old
Symbiosis.
Franklin was like a alien in disguise. Alien had taken over his body. He led him into the ice on purpose as a trap.
Maybe. That sounds like a logical man's theory.
Sounds feasible, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One more note on the cannibalism thing.
We'll email them. Email the
email Franklin.
No, who's like the organisation who like does all this shit? Like they've put a lot of effort into like tracking down all the little camps where they were, and like I don't know. Looking at the tins and everything. Who's doing this?
Yeah,
so
some sort of
the ones in the
archaeological
80s,
studies.
they were funded by a few universities in Canada. So it was like a joint scientific expedition. And then more recently, it's been some Canadian expeditions to find the ships, because now they're national monuments in Canada, like the ships and all these places and stuff. So I think the Canadian government, have invested money into try and find them, all that sort of stuff. But one last thing on the cannibalism. So after they found the 3 bodies and they found some random other, bits of bone and stuff like that, they eventually found one particular site where they uncovered over 400 bones, and they believe it was the remains of 10 to 14 men. And all of these bones showed elevated levels of lead within the bone, and many cut marks consistent with defleshing. It's a quote. It's quite a good descriptor, isn't it? Consistent with defleshing.
So like they died first and they thought, fuck it, we might as well eat them.
might as well eat them then. Yeah. And obviously they can see the marks on the bone where they've been cutting off bits of skin and muscle and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's now generally accepted that at least some groups of Franklin's men resorted to cannibalism in the final moments of their distress.
Wow.
So pretty bleak.
I mean, you would do, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Might as fucking well. If they died anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't, Rob.
No, it's
Does
different.
veganism also count with people?
No, it's fine.
Because we're at the top of the food chain,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, you can eat people.
Yeah.
So we're all right to eat.
Haven't been like bred to, be eaten, so fuck it, I'll eat you.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Fair enough. Isn't cannibalism meant to send you crazy as well? Like eating other people?
I was going to say that, yeah.
But I don't know if it's
probably don't sit well with your mental health, does it? If you've like...
No, but it's actually meant to like change your
actual...
brain, like not just from like an emotional standpoint, but like you're not meant to eat your own species. Like, even like the animal kingdom, lions won't eat lions because like it fucks with them as well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But do you think it's the actual act though, or the actual meat is?
I think it's the actual meat, like human meat. Like if you were serving someone human meat without them knowing it was human meat, you told them it was pork or whatever, and they were eating that. Apparently, that would it would just turn them crazy.
Still fucks you up.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's like only if you were doing that consistently, or if you eat two people because you're surviving, suddenly you're like crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's some mad stories of like in America in the early days when everyone was traveling west. Obviously the US was populated on the East Coast by settlers, and then over time they moved west, and obviously indigenous Americans are already there. But as these groups of travelers were heading over the Rocky Mountains and stuff, a lot of them would get snowbound, and just get stuck in one spot over winter and just have no supplies. And there was one called the Donna Party, which is well worth looking up if you want to be depressed, because basically this like group of, I think it was 6 or 7 families got stuck in the mountains over a winter and just had to eat each other. Like all of them were just chowing down on people for 6 months, and then like 4 of them survived. 4 kids survived because the mum killed the dad and then was serving the dad to the kids for weeks. It's just fucking bleak. It's one of the bleakest stories you'll ever hear, but it's interesting from like a human survival perspective. Like, what would you do in that situation? It's just it's crazy,
mad.
But on the lighter note, I know we've spoken about cannibalism and people chopping each other up and all that bullshit. Much like the Endurance, the ships were found. So for years and years, well, literally hundreds of years, they didn't know where the exact locations of the Terror and the Erebus were. Obviously, because they was in the ice. The ice drifts, the ship sinks. Who knows where it is? The note found in the cairn offered a little bit of a clue to where the ships were at a certain point, but again, there wasn't really any good evidence. They were searching throughout the whole of the 20th and the 21st centuries. And eventually in 2014, HMS Erebus was found in 36 feet of water in pristine condition, apparently. And then in 2016, the wreck of HMS Terror was found in 79 foot of water. And the place it was found was in a bay called Terror Bay. So the bay had been named after the ship, not knowing that the ship had sunk actually in the bay, which was quite a poetic end. And apparently HMS Terror is pristine like the Endurance, and there's a video online of the search party. They sent a little robot in, and they actually go through all the corridors, like you were saying, Tom. Imagining going through the inside of a ship, and this little robot goes all the way through and into the captain's cabin, and it's just it looks as if there was no water there. It looks like it would have done 150 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
I can see one. There's like plates in it and shit.
Yeah, everything's still. I think they even found the captain's like logbook. Wow. They've got plans to try and get the logbook out because it might give a bit more information about what happened on board up until when they had to abandon ship and
all that
sort of stuff.
Yeah, I want to watch that later.
Sorry, it's very, very interesting. I'd also link the I mean, the clip where they find the bodies, it's not as interesting all the way through, but the bits where they're actually bringing the bodies out is just pretty mad. So I'll link it to you as well. Maybe we'll put that in the YouTube link on the video. But that was it.
Nice one.
That was the Franklin expedition. A story of cannibalism, mystery.
Aliens.
For over 150 years. I guess 1845.
Aliens briefly, yeah.
200 years almost, 180 years or something. It was a mystery. No one knew what had happened to these men. They just vanished into thin air. And then imagine over the course of a lifetime, someone's lifetime, they were like finding little extra bits of information. In the local newspaper, there might have been a little byline saying, mystery of Franklin's lost expedition, rumours of cannibalism, blah, blah, blah. And then another 10 years goes by and they find another little bit. So I just like the idea of this mystery taking 180 years to be semi-solved.
Yeah.
And I like a bit of cold bleakness. I like a good story of human survival or non-survival, somewhere where we shouldn't be. So, hope you enjoyed it.
Nice one.
Somewhere
nice one,
where we shouldn't be.
Somewhere we shouldn't be. Talking of which, if anyone's still with us, check out.
All right, mate.
Check out Pie on the Trail. You should watch this. I'll send you the link. My friend did a hiking across Iceland. He does loads of long distance stuff, and he's done one. He's put some videos up recently. Really shot really well on that. It's going to be a series of him hiking across Iceland. Pie on the Trail is his
nice.
YouTube name.
How much is he paying us for this segment?
I know, mate. Shout out.
Fucking hell.
He might hype us back. It's a little like two-way thing.
Shout out, sub to Pie on the Trail.
Yeah.
Pie on the Trail. Does he take a pie with him when he?
No, it was his Appalachian Trail name. Everyone comes up with a nickname on that or something, and it's stuck with him.
Was his name Pie or Pie on the Trail?
His name was Pie. Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'd be Pie on the Trail, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's too like Thurrock Music Festival.
Yeah.
All right, cool, nice one, George.
Thanks,
Nice.
George.
Well, I hope people enjoyed it. I know it's not got cum in it. It's not got dicks in it. Maybe they eat their dicks.
They
Probably
like that.
Yeah.
Cum's a good source of protein, apparently.
Oh, classic when that comes up, isn't it? Yeah.
He knew it, like he's just out on a hunt and he just sees like 40 white European guys tossing each other off in a circle.
Told you, they got off.
Yeah.
What did I say? They got off.
But they survived.
Oh, they didn't survive in
They
this
didn't
case.
survive, no. Probably because they didn't get off.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
true.
the difference.
Very true.
Yeah. Cool. That was episode 74 of the Curios Cast. Don't eat human meat.
Yep.
And always check your tins. Always check your tins.
Thanks, Captain George. Peace.
Yeah.